There are a number of modify commands, all of which would be right here. We can move an object, and always remember to read the bottom here. It says move select objects. All right, well, I'm going to move this set of polygons that we drew. So I selected them. Now I can press Enter, spacebar, or right click. And then it says specify base point. Well, the base point, I can click anywhere for the base point. But for this particular one, I want to pick the center. And so now the base point is the point where you grab it. So I grabbed it at the center. And so now if I wanted the center of this to be the same as the center of this, I can move it to the object snap for the center of that. Also, there's copy. Copy is a lot like move, but it creates a copy of the object that you're creating. So I can click copy, and then it says select objects. Well, I'm going to select the same set of octagons. I hit spacebar, enter, or right click. I'm going to pick the center, and now it's like a stamp. I can place a number of these out there. Rotate takes an object and rotates it. So right now it says select object, so I'm going to select our text. I'm going to hit spacebar once I've selected everything, or enter, or right click. And then it says specify base point. Well, this base point will be the point that the text will rotate around. So I could pick the middle of the text, or this corner, or I could even pick a point out here, and whatever point I choose, the text will rotate around that point. Okay, so for this case, I want to select the text, and I want to pick the center of the text, and I want it to be straight now. So you can see that right there it looks pretty good, but I put it at a 45-degree angle, and I want to change that to -45, or I could take 360 degrees and subtract 45 degrees from that, which would be 315 degrees. And you can see right now that looks right. Scale. Let's say I'm happy with that text, but I want it bigger. I can go to scale, and then I read this. It says select objects. Well, I want to select the text, and then I hit spacebar, enter, or right click, and then it says specify base point. All right, well, if I click a point down here, the text is going to move away from me as it gets bigger. If I pick a point in the center of the text will get bigger around the base point. So let's go ahead and choose that. And then I can just sort of move my mouse to make it bigger and smaller. However, I can also just say, all right, I want it 4 times bigger than it was before. So I can type 4, and 4 would indicate 400%. Now let's say that I like that, but it's a little bit too big. So I'm going to go and scale that down. Maybe I want it half that size. So when I get in here, I can type in 0.5. 0.5 would be 50% the size. And then if I hit enter, you can see that it's gotten half as small. Trim. Trim is a command that has a sister command that both work really well and are something that you should definitely use. Let's say I have these goofy lines crossing over like that. If I go to trim, I can select all of these lines, hit enter, spacebar, or right click, and then I can use trim to remove the things that were beyond what I wanted. Now notice this line right here, I can't trim that. The reason I can't trim it is because it would delete the entire line. If you have to delete an entire line, it's not trimming. We can select it and hit delete, and we can erase it. Another way to erase is the erase command. If you click on the erase command, we can select an object and hit spacebar, enter, or right click, and it will delete it. Now, the trim commands, I told you that it had a sister command, and that's called extend. Extend takes lines that don't quite make it to where you want them to go, and so we can use extend, and you have to first choose the line you want to extend it to. Then you hit enter, spacebar, or right click, and then you click the line you want to extend. Another fun one is called array. Array takes an object, let's say we want a bunch of these circle with octagons, and we want a bunch of those. So we click array, we select the object, we hit spacebar, and so here is what's called a rectangular array. You can see that we have 4 across and 3 up. Now we can change that. We can say we want 3 across and 4 up. I can also change the distance between. So if I change this to 2 inches, you can see that they got closer together. Or I can make it larger, make it 4 inches between. So you can change a lot here. Polar array makes a circular array of an object. So you choose the object, and then you want to choose a center point. Well, I'm going to choose a center point out here, and you can see that it's creating a circular array of objects. And we can change the number of objects. So maybe instead of 6, I'd like 10 objects. And there it is. So array can make some pretty cool designs. We also have offset. Offset, when we click offset, it first asks us, specify the distance. Well, in this case, I'm going to choose 1 inch. And then it says select object to offset. Well, I'm going to offset this line. And then it says specify point on side to offset. Now I can choose above or beneath. And what it did was it created another line, exactly like the first line, that was 1 inch away, perfectly parallel. And I can continue to offset lines like that, and I get all these lines that are perfectly parallel to the initial line. If you offset a circle, it offsets the entire circle. So each one of these circles is 1 inch apart. It also works with ellipses. The fillet command allows you to make a corner a rounded corner. So right here it says select first object or undo polyline radius trim multiple. Well, right now our radius as default is 0, so we would need to type in R for radius. And then we have to change the radius to 0.25 or something larger than 0. And then it says select first object. Well, I'm going to select this line. And then it says select second object. I'm going to select this line. And what it does is it makes a perfectly round corner that's got a 1/4 inch radius. You can also do something similar with circles. I can go to tangent, tangent, radius, and I can tell it I want a circle tangent to this line and tangent to this line with a 0.25 radius, and you can see that it created a circle that is perfectly touching on this line, perfectly touching this line, and has a 0.25 radius. There's also tangent, tangent, tangent. In tangent, 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 I can make a circle tangent to 3 lines. I can make it tangent to this line, and this line. And that would make a perfect circle that touches all 3 of those. And then I could come back and I could trim each of these off. Now notice this won't trim because I'm deleting the entire line. So I can come in afterwards and I can delete that. You can also trim circles.